one of the biggest secrets to success is focus and managing your focus, because whatever you focus on is going to grow larger, positive or negative. So if you're focused on the negativity in the news, that's going to get bigger.
This is the Multifamily Journey Podcast, show 44.
You're listening to the Multifamily Journey Podcast. In this show, you'll hear industry experts share tips of success and failure from their real estate investing journeys. You'll get a transparent look behind the curtain while you learn to fulfill the lifestyle you want to live and achieve your wealth goals. Get ready for the journey to financial freedom through investing in multifamily real estate. Here's your host, Blake Dailey.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Multifamily Journey Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Dailey, and this is a show that I've been excited for a long time. Today, my guest is Rod Khleif, and I first got introduced to him when I first got into multifamily. He was one of the first multifamily conferences, boot camps, as he calls them, that I went to last year when COVID made everything virtual. And he's just a guy that puts out awesome content, very value add, does a lot outside of investing to help others, does coaching and has a mastermind group, and just a great all around guy. And his story is amazing. I mean, he immigrated to America and got introduced to real estate investing by his mom taking babysitter money and buying the house across the street. So he learned the power of real estate and then did it in his own way at a very, very high level, first in the single family space, lost it all in the crash, and then built up what is now a huge multifamily portfolio and multifamily empire, what we're all kind of striving to get to. So we talk a lot about mindset on the show, which I think is so important, and how he incorporates mindset into the essentials of success. Like without it, you can't succeed. I mean, it's just great. All the things he talks about: visualization, writing down your goals, putting emotions to your goals, like writing those out, how that would make you feel to either achieve it or not achieve that goal that you write down is super huge. So we're going to get into a lot of good stuff. And then he gives takeaways of, what made him lose his portfolio in the 2008 crash, what he sees in today's market that's similar, and also what he expects to see in the future of the real estate space based on inflation, the stimulus, and everything the government is doing into the economy right now. So super insightful content from a guy who's been through market cycles, who's lost it all, who's built it up even bigger and better, and is just performing at a super high level. So very, very good show. Like I said, I've been excited to have. So because of that, I'm excited to deliver it to you guys today. So hope you guys really like the show. If you do, please leave it a rating, give it a 5-star rating, leave a review if you like it. And also you can follow Rod on Instagram. It's Rod_Khleif, and I'm at Blake J. Dailey. He puts out some awesome content. I've been putting out a lot of stuff myself about deals we're doing and stuff like that. So excited to connect with you guys on Instagram, shoot me messages, whatever. But yeah, with that, let's get into the show. All right, Mr. Rod Khleif, welcome to the podcast. This is one I've been excited for. So glad to have you here.
Oh, thanks, brother. I appreciate you having me, Blake. Let's have some fun today. I'm going to try to add as much value as I possibly can.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. So I just gave you an introduction before we got into the recording. So now let's just get right into, the very beginning of your story and what got you into real estate in the beginning.
Sure. So, for those of you that have heard my story, forgive me, there'll be some redundancy here, but I immigrated to this country when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert and my mother's Vantje. And I was born in the Netherlands, in Holland, wooden shoes and windmills. And we ended up in Denver, Colorado. And we didn't have much. We really struggled quite a bit. In fact, the memories that I have were going to the day old bread store because that's all we could afford was, the old bread, drinking powdered milk with our cereal in the morning because we couldn't afford regular milk. And I remember I wore clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school until I lied about my age when I was 14 because I was really tall and got a job at Burger King flipping burgers so I could buy my own clothes and buy my own car when I was 16. And I'm sure you've got listeners that are tight or have had it hard or maybe had it harder or have it harder now than I did. But I knew I wanted more. And luckily my mom, she was a bit of an entrepreneur and she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And with her babysitting money, she invested successfully in the stock market. And then she looked at real estate. And when I was 14, she used her babysitting money to buy the house across the street for $30,000 and approximately. And 3 years later, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep when I was 17. I'm like, what? Mom, screw college. I'm getting into real estate. You didn't do anything. Yeah. You made 20 grand. So I got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18, which you could do back then with education. Now they got smart. You need some experience before you're a broker, but I was a broker. I could have my own office and I was going to be rich selling other people's houses. Well, my first year in real estate, I made about $8 grand. My second year, maybe 10 grand, approximately. This is 42 years ago, 10 to 12, maybe whatever it was. But the third year, I made over $100,000. And so, one of the things that I'm known for and love talking about is how that happened. How was I able to 10x my income from year 2 to year 3? And the topic is mindset and psychology. So I met a guy that taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology. I was actually dating his daughter, and that's how it happened. And fast forward to today, I've owned a couple thousand houses, thousands of rental apartment units. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And if you do the math on that, it's like $8,300 an hour. I did. Not too bad. And anybody that would hold still long enough heard about it because I thought I was a freaking real estate god. And, I could barely fit my head through the door. And, when that happens, God or the universe, whatever you believe, will give you a nice little smack. Well, that was 2008 and 9 for me. I lost everything. I lost $50 million in 2008 and 9. And so, like I said, one of the things I'm known for is talking about the mindset and psychology it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place. But then as importantly, how to recover from that to the success that I'm blessed to have today. And so I'm happy to drill down on that some more with you, Blake, if you like. I really believe that's why my students, I have this warrior mentorship program and coaching students, and something I'm really proud of. I've been teaching a little over 3.5 years, and they now own over 45,000 units, which is just mind blowing to me. And I know the biggest piece of that is the mindset and the psychology. If it was just the knowledge, there'd be a bunch of wealthy librarians and college professors out there. You actually have to take action with the knowledge. And, so many people have fear, or they have limiting beliefs, or maybe they're comfortable and the comfort zone's a warm place, but we all know nothing freaking grows there. Right. So, but I'm happy to take that conversation as deep as you'd like.
Yeah. And talk about, the power of combining the knowledge with the right mindset. And it's one thing to do it yourself and build up a big portfolio. Now you're talking about your students have over 45,000 units. That's amazing. Giving back in a big way.
Yeah. And you talked about, for a second, you touched on the power of team there. And most of those deals were done between warriors, because as you know, Blake, this business is a team sport. I know you've got a partner and I've got a partner, and I talk about this a lot on my podcast, how one of the most common partnerships is someone that's outgoing and building relationships with someone that's super analytical. And that is like a match made in heaven, because
that's like business. You just described my partnership right there.
Well, there you go. And I had these 3 kids on my partner. I had these 3 kids on my podcast. I'm a little weak, a little tired this morning, so I may fumble my words a little bit, but I had these 3 kids on my podcast. This has been about a year ago. And between them, they had like $70-80 million worth of assets, and they were all in their 20s. And I don't know how old you are. I call them kids because, oh, no kidding. Are you really? Holy cow. Well, I'm 61, so I can get away with that. But they had, $70-80 million in assets, and every one of them was one of those partnerships like I just described, outgoing person with an analytical.
Yeah, the proof's in the pudding on that one.
Yeah. So anyway, I met this guy that taught me about mindset, and one of the things I spent 20 years following Tony Robbins around the planet, who's the king of mindset, obviously. But one of the things that I learned was the power of goals. And, it's so easy as human beings for us to focus on the negative, especially we started touching on this or before we started recording about the news and the fake news and get started on politics. And there's so much negativity out there right now. And It's
And it
just
takes
so
a lot to
important.
overcome that sometimes too,
Oh,
because you
buddy,
just
you have
feel
to.
bogged down by it so many times.
It's crazy how consuming it is. There's a movie called The Social Dilemma. I don't know if you've seen it, but
Yep.
it's about the power of social media and it's dividing this country. But the point is it's so important right now. If you're listening to Blake, you're a leader. There's no question. I don't care how old you are. You're a leader, and you may not even know it yourself. But right now, more than ever, the world needs leaders. And as a leader, you have got to pay attention to what you're focused on. Tony Robbins says, stand guard at the door to your mind, and you just have to protect your thoughts because there's so much negativity. It's easy to get influenced by it and have it derail your dreams. And so, I would tell you one of the biggest secrets to success is focus and managing your focus, because whatever you focus on is going to grow larger, positive or negative. So if you're focused on the negativity in the news, that's going to get bigger. I get, young people calling me, and one of the common questions I get is, how do I get rid of this student loan debt? And I say, wrong question. Focus on the money you need to make so the student loan debt is irrelevant. They asked Mother Teresa when she was alive if she was anti-war. She said, no, I'm pro-peace. And so focus is so absolutely critical on this path to success. So, and then, like I said, goals are hugely important. If you ever come to one of my boot camps, the first hour and 15 minutes, hour and 30 minutes are all about determining exactly what you want with clarity, and then determining why
Rod,
you want
it's funny you say that, because one of I syndicated my first deal earlier this year. So all really 2020, when COVID hit, I kind of made that pivot into multifamily, commercial multifamily, from focus on residential single family homes and residential multifamily. And that's the time that I put into my education during COVID, when I wasn't, the world kind of stopped moving for a little bit. So I was like, all right, how do I take advantage of this time? And lo and behold, you were having one of those boot camps. I went to that boot camp.
Oh, you did?
I'm looking at it right now. One of the sheets I filled out, it has your goals and, your hopes, what you want your life to look like, not just your business, but like your relationships and all that kind of stuff. And now I'm still working towards that. I'm looking at it right now. So that was
that's awesome.
One of those pivotal moments for me. So I wanted to say thanks for that in the early days, finding you early. So, it's been over a year in the making. So glad we're finally doing this.
Was that a live event or virtual?
That was one of the virtual ones. Yeah, it was May maybe of 2020.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, thank you for that. I mean, it's such an important piece of this. I mean, guys, those of you listening, look at Blake's success and see, Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, calls it a burning desire. And by the way, if you haven't read Think and Grow Rich, for God's sakes, go get it. It's a book,
it's a must read.
like it's honestly a book you should read every year, because it has got so many distinctions. And one of them is you have to want it. You have to want it bad, because that's how you push through that fear. We all have that fear. I mean, and the only thing that mitigates, well, not the only thing, one of the biggest things that mitigates fear is massive action. And so you've got to really want it and know why you want it. And so one of the things, when a student calls me and says he's stalled out, I say, how aligned are your goals? How clear are they? How measurable are they? How much do you want them? Because that's what gets you to take action. Another thing is limiting beliefs. When I immigrated here, I didn't speak English, and I got thrown into school and discovered bullies for the first time. And I got my butt kicked on a regular basis. And I was a tall kid. I just didn't know how to fight. And so, and then my mom would send me to school in Dutch apparel, like wooden shoes and crap, because she was proud about our heritage. Of course, I get my butt kicked again. And then, and I had an incident on a schoolyard where a girl that I had a crush on kind of embarrassed me in front of a bunch of kids. And I got this limiting belief that I wasn't good enough. And a lot of people have these things. And so I want to say this to you. If you're one of those people and you have this thing that it's there, it's kind of subconscious, pull it out in the daylight and look at it with your adult rational mind, because there's a reason that the acronym for belief systems is BS, because 99% of them are, but you've got to think about them rationally. And that's what I had to do. I had to pull it out whenever it happened and recognize that, anybody that would reject me just didn't know me. And so keep that in mind as well. If you've got any of those limiting beliefs, consciously recognize that they're BS, pull them out in the daylight, and they will diminish and ultimately go away.
Yeah.
And then
And that's so
lastly,
huge. That's something I had to do myself. Sorry. I want you to continue because this is really good stuff, but just wanted to highlight like that's something I had in a big way, whether it was, taking that leap to the next level into bigger deals. And especially with, raising money for those bigger deals, I thought that that's something I couldn't do because I wasn't prepared enough yet. And I didn't have the experience, but you just have to push through that stuff. I mean, that's what Rod's saying is absolutely true.
Yeah. The last piece is, a lot of people are comfortable, like I said, and you've got to have that burning desire to get out of that comfort zone, to grind for a few years like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. And so, that burning desire is critical. And like I said, focus is critical. The next one I'll mention, if you'll allow me to continue here, is your peer group. Yeah, is your peer group. And, I talked about my warrior mentorship group. Find a group like that, align, with people that want more out of life, because it's very easy to be around naysayers, people that will, diminish your dreams out of their fear or out of their jealousy or even out of their fear of losing you. And sometimes those people are family. And I would tell you, love your family, but choose your peers. Be very careful who you allow to influence you. So be around people that want more, that'll hold you to a higher standard, that'll be excited about your success, not jealous or feel diminished by your success. And that's so important. So if you show me the 3 people you hang out with the most, I'll show you who you are, because you are them. And so just be very selective. Most people default to the people they went to school with or grew up with, and that's a mistake. You need to proactively choose those peers. So, go out there and find a group of people that are making this happen, doing it, whatever it is that you want to do, get around them. I'll give you an example of this. 3 years ago, I've been in tons of masterminds in my life. And in fact, luckily I talked about Tony Robbins a lot because he was a huge mentor for me. I was in his big platinum partnership when 2008 and 9 happened. And I was around people that were thriving back then. They were like, come on, quit whining, get your ass up and get back to it. Focus on, helping me get through that. And so 3 years ago, I started my own mastermind. It's called the Multifamily Boardroom. But I had it here in my house, in my compound. I had 16 people here, about $1 billion in assets. And I was like blown away by the value, because guys, we want to be around people that think what we think is hard is easy. And that's why I did that. Now it's turned into I'm pretty sure the biggest mastermind of its type in the world. There's about 14 billion in assets in there now, people with 5 to 10,000 units, a lot of them, 20,000, 100,000. So, again, I love that because it helps me. There's so many little nuances and little tweaks that you just can't get. I can't even teach from stage because there's so many of them. And so get around people, again, that think what you think is hard is easy.
Yeah, that is such a huge thing. And that's something I've really seen in my personal life that's helped me continue to grow, is getting around those people and continuing, to push to the next group of, achievement in my peers. Most people I, talk with outside of, like my wife at home is people doing real estate at a bigger level than me, and continuing to learn and adapt and, share what I'm learning and, have that give and take. And there's just so much that it really helps flatten your learning curve. And, it reduces, the time that will take you to reach the level that you want. I mean, it greatly reduces.
Oh, absolutely. Shortens the learning curve. And you need that camaraderie. You need the people to bounce things off of, especially in this technical business that we're in, multifamily investing. By the way, I've got a boot camp coming up in December. Thank God. Finally, a live event again. Nice. December 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And it's going to be a big one.
And that one's in Orlando, right?
Orlando, yeah. And tickets are already selling like crazy. And so I don't know when this will go live for you, but if you're interested, you can text Rod in Orlando to 72345 or go to rodinorlando.com. The prices are absolutely the lowest they'll be right now. And I will tell you, even if you've seen me speak, it's such an incredible networking opportunity. My last live event, I remember, was in LA, and I was in the room teaching, and I needed to leave the room, and I had my team with me. We walk out, and there were more people outside networking than inside. And at first I'm like, hey, why aren't your asses in the room? But then I got goosebumps seeing all these little groups of people building their networks. And it was just astounding. And that's what happens at my events. So yeah, if you can make it, you'll be very glad you came.
I love it. I'll have to check it out and maybe compare the virtual experience to the in-person.
Oh, it's quite a bit different. Yeah, I go for 3 days. There's a lot of things I can't do in the virtual one. I just don't have the energy, frankly. It sounds like you'd think I'd be able to go longer virtually, but in a live event,
kind of feed off the crowd.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I get all that love and energy, and in my virtual studio, I got these poker faced videographers that like no energy at all. So, but yeah, it's funny. But let me talk about goals for a minute, because this is something that even if you don't come to my boot camp. By the way, I do this goal setting exercise again in every boot camp, but yeah, I did this on January 2nd on my Rod Khleif official page. I did it with music, and you can download a guide. So if you want to get this, if you DM me on any social channel, I'm on all of them. I'm even on freaking TikTok now. I can't even spell TikTok, and I'm on there now. And I actually went viral on there, which blew me away. I had one watch for like 260,000 views 2 weeks in. But anyway, I digress. So if you hit me up on any social media channel, I'll get you the link to that. What I'm going to describe here, if you're okay with me describing it for a minute, Blake.
That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So what I want to do, describe what again, if you want to have me guide you through it with music and the free download, just go to DM me on any social channel. And I'm very active. I respond to every DM. But let me describe the process very, very quickly. Because it's so freaking powerful. Again, this is how I had 50 million to lose in the first place, and how I got back to the success that I'm blessed to have today was, reassociating with what I wanted. So what I want, what I suggest you do is just pick an hour when you have a lot of energy. Don't do it after a meal, and sit down and write down everything you could ever possibly want in life. Okay. Everything, not just the New Year's resolutions that are forgotten in February. You write everything down. Okay. So you start with all the stuff. Okay. You start with the houses, cars, boats, jet skis, planes, and just anything you could ever want in your lifetime. You write down how much cash you want in the bank in a few years, and then again in 10 years. As you're just in case the stuff hits the fan fund, you write down how much cash flow you want from your assets, say in 3 years and 10 years, and then write down all the things you want to do in this lifetime as well. Like I've got a travel vision board behind my green screen here of the places I love and want to go again, or the places I haven't been and want to go, so write down the places you want to go, write down, all the things you want to do, climb every mountain over 15,000 feet in the world. I've got a friend doing that, or, skydive. I did that a year and a half ago, and I'll never freaking do it again, but it's off the bucket list. But because I have a fear of heights, but I say go after your fears. But anyway, so write down all the stuff you want to do. Also write down everything you want to learn in your lifetime, because learners are earners, and you should continually be learning. There is no stop. Learning doesn't stop at college. In fact, it starts after college. Okay. And so write all that stuff down. And if you want to learn a foreign language, whatever it is, a skill set, if it's multifamily, for God's sakes, continue to listen to Blake here, and hopefully you'll come to my boot camp. I don't think I've ever had a complaint, except the live ones that the room's too cold or too hot or whatever. And at the virtual ones that the breaks are too short, but it's never about the content. And it's not a big sales pitch either. It's just content. But so write down all the things you want to learn. And lastly, write down who you want to help. Because again, this is the fuel to get you to take action. It's never about the goals. It's what the goals cause you to do for yourself. And so write down who you want to help, because we'll do more for others than we'll ever do for ourselves. And you want to use that, like for my example with, I bought my parents a house and on a canal here in Florida when my dad was alive, bought him a car, took him on cruises. Who do you want to do something for? Write that down. And then once you can't think of another thing, put a time limit on each goal. There's a couple more quick steps. Put how many years it's going to take you to achieve it. So put a 1, a 3, a 5, even a 10 or a 20, recognizing that as human beings, we'll overestimate what we can do in a year and massively underestimate what we can do in 5, 10, 20 years. I'll give you an example of this. When I was 18, I lived in Denver, but I knew I wanted to live on the beach, and I would visualize the sand and the surf and the palm trees. And there's no beach in Denver, obviously. And 20 years later, I built this $8 million, 10,000 square foot mansion on the beach, which was unthinkable when I was 18. But because I focused on it, visualized it, I made it happen. And so again, don't limit yourself when you're writing your goals. Take the lid off your brain. Imagine if you write it down, you'll get it. So once you've got a time limit on each goal, pick your number one goal. I mean, the one that you get it, you have freaking arrived. Okay. That goal. And if there's a couple that are similar, just pick one. It won't matter for this next step. and then pick your top 3 1-year goals. Put all 4 of those on a separate sheet of paper. And again, if you DM me, I'll send you the guide and I'll guide you through this with music and everything. But so you've got your number 1 goal and your top 3 1-year goals on a separate sheet of paper. Leave room in between them. And at this point, you're ahead of 99% of the people on the planet, like I say, that do a New Year's resolution that's gone by February. But there's one more critical step, and that is you need to write down why every one of those goals is an absolute freaking must to achieve. And you want to use emotionally charged words. Words are so powerful. Use words like beautiful and incredible and amazing and magnificent as you're describing what, the why, so I can show my kids what amazing success looks like. So I can show my wife or husband what it means to live an unbelievable life of abundance, things like that. So we can have freedom to do whatever we want, whenever we want, wherever we want, whatever it is for you that's going to juice you, write that down. There may be some redundancy between the goals. That's okay. But write down why they have to happen. And then take it one little step further. Put some pain in there if you don't achieve the goals. Why? Because as human beings, we'll do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. And you want to use this. Again, this is that fuel to get your butt out of bed early, to stay up late, to, do whatever it takes to make this happen for yourself. So put some pain in there, so if you don't achieve it, so I don't feel like a failure. So I don't fail my kids. So I don't fail my husband or wife. So
that's such a powerful piece too. Cause the want and the drive can only get you so far, but when you have the pain, the adverse reaction to losing something is much stronger than the desire to have it. So that's
absolutely. And
I remember doing all this too, along with
they asked, and you might put, so I don't live a life of regret or have regrets when I die. There was a nurse named Bronnie Ware in Australia that was a hospice nurse that, took care of patients when they were about to die. And she asked him a question and wrote a book about it, actually. And the question was, do you have any regrets? And the book's The 5 Regrets of Dying. And the number 1 regret was not living the life I could have living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. And guys, man, if that doesn't motivate you, I don't know what the hell will, honestly, because that to me, that scares the heck out of me. So, that's why the goals and the whys are so freaking important. And then the last step is get pictures of your goals, put them around you. I love to show my planner here. It's right here on today's date. I'm actually going out of town today, so there's not a lot on it. But in the back of this thing are pictures I've had for 20 years. And the first pictures are my gratitude pictures. By the way, if you do this and you do a vision board, do a gratitude board as well, because everything starts from a place of gratitude. It's foundational. So these are pictures of my kids when they were young. Then I've got, things that I wanted. That house on the beach, that's that top picture. Now it looks just like that. This is before I built it. Travertine floors, 10-foot high glass, butt together like that. It's exactly what it looked like. It's crazy before I built it. And I lost that in all the craziness. But what's even crazier is this bottom picture. You can see the white walls in there, Blake. See the white walls there? Yep. Look behind me. That's my backyard. See the white wall? Yep. Isn't that nuts? I mean, this is 20 years before I had this. And I live in a compound now. I've got 6 buildings. I've got a giant main house, 2-bedroom guest house, big media building where I've got my video studio now because we had to go live, on virtual now. And what's funny is you can see my old house across the bay. It's literally right across the bay.
The irony, it's a constant reminder of why to be doing all this.
Stupid shit like these watches. I've got a few $100,000 of watches. I forgot to talk about the cars that I had, but I've had all, things that I thought were important, like a Lamborghini. I bought one of those. I had Rolls Royce, Bentley, all stuff I had pictures of that I got, and that stuff may not interest you listening, but whatever is going to juice you, that's what you need to use. So anyway, get pictures, put them around you. And like Blake, you've got your list in front of you. Guys, this stuff works. Okay. It just freaking works. And some of you
are from that exercise over here. I'm looking at it. I've got, the pictures, the goals right up here. I've got my vivid vision from the book, Vivid Vision. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
I've got that written out, like what I want my life to look like. I mean, this is such foundational pieces of it to me. I mean, the people that don't do these things, and Rod, you spoke to this so well, is like before you lost it all, it seems like you didn't have all this in place, or maybe did, but maybe strayed away from it because you didn't have those goals and everything set up.
No, I didn't stray. No. I mean, listen, buddy, countries went bankrupt in 2008 and 9. So I don't feel bad about my situation.
Yeah. Correct me here.
No, I didn't stray at all. But I got caught up in what I was at a 30% loan to value when we crashed, buddy. I wasn't like over leveraged or anything. I'll let you know what happened. So some people ask me,
this is
like,
going to be the question I was going to get into.
So how did I lose it all? So I had 800 houses and I had several apartment complexes, and it was the houses that pulled me down. Now here's why. My houses were 2 hours north and 2 hours south along the coast, the Gulf Coast of Florida, and everywhere in between. And so logistically, they were a mistake. I was too geographically dispersed, number one. Okay. But, taxes in property taxes in Florida are higher than other states because there's no state income tax here. Okay. So, which obviously property taxes impact cash flow. It's probably the biggest impact of cash flow. Insurance. I had properties in wind and flood zones. So higher insurance impacts what? Cash flow. But again, what killed me was that disbursement, because if I sent a maintenance guy to one of my apartment complexes, everything's the same. So we can stockpile parts. HVAC is the same, hot water heaters, appliances, plumbing fixtures and parts, and the guts in the plumbing fixtures, door locks. You can stockpile all that stuff. So I can send a maintenance guys in and out in an hour. Well, if I had to send them an hour one way to one of these 800 houses, they have to get there and see what's wrong because every house is different. They can't stockpile all those parts. Then they've got to go find a Home Depot or Lowe's, which could be an hour round trip. And invariably, what took an hour at one of my apartment complexes took all day at one of these 800 houses. Now, these were C-class houses as well. They weren't A and B houses. I had a handful of A and B, but most were C. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot more, as you and I know, there's a lot more maintenance with a C-class asset. It's older. The tenant demographic is rougher on the asset. Yep. And so we had tons of maintenance, and that ate my lunch. But then kind of the final straw that killed me was, a lot of my tenants were contractors. They were plumbers, electricians, drywallers, painters, roofers, because that was what I was renting. I wasn't paying attention to demographics back then. I do now. Literally, like, I've got a 296 unit asset under contract in San Antonio. And when will this go live, by the way, Blake?
Today's the September 10th. By probably September 20th to 24th.
Okay. I've got a San Antonio asset, 296 units. If you're accredited, I still have some slots left in it. And it's a screaming deal. But I literally looked at where every single tenant worked and kind of gauged recession resistance at that employment. And I would encourage you to do that. If you're buying an asset, look at where they work. And I didn't do that back then. So these guys, in 2008 and 9, these contractors, their work fell off a cliff. Yeah. But again, if you are accredited and you want to take a look at that San Antonio deal, screaming deal, you can text the word partner to 72345 and talk to us about it. It's got double-digit returns on cash and IRR. But what's astounding about it is it breaks even day one at 41% vacant. 59% occupied, breaks even day one, and still has 11% cash on cash, 15% IRR. Well, that's unheard of in this hot market. And I'm, like you mentioned earlier, I'm blessed. I get deals coming at me from all over the country from hundreds of my Warrior students. And this was brought to us by a Warrior. But anyway, so that's what killed me back then, Blake, was all of those things. You know what's crazy? I was at a 30% loan to value. In 2009, my portfolio actually went upside down. It dropped more than 70% in value. And that's, I threw the freaking towel in. All right, I'm done. And of course, I have a lot of regret now, but I couldn't hold on to it. I couldn't hold it together. And what was sad is, in my infinite wisdom, I cross-collateralized my apartment buildings with packages of houses to save 50 basis points. By the way, for those of you who don't know what that means, that's like a 0.5% interest. There's 100 basis points in an interest. So, hey, yeah, I saved some money on refinancing these together. And of course, everything went down the tubes, but it's all good. Life is about meaning, by the way, guys. Yeah. If you've had something negative happen to you, you can place a positive meaning on it. My meaning is I would have never met my spectacularly beautiful wife. Beautiful human being, and physically spectacularly beautiful. And I would have never met her if it hadn't happened. So that's the meaning I place on all that.
That's good. Yeah. Always the silver lining. Yeah. You're talking about those learning lessons. I mean, it's such important things to think about, knowing your asset class, knowing your tenant class, and knowing where the efficiencies lie in your portfolio, especially if you're going to get to that level. So super important. And I wanted to dig in here through all that. What do you think is maybe the most important lesson you learned through that housing crash of how to avoid the next one?
That's easy, man. In fact, I wrote a book called uh, I'm having a brain fart here. How to create lifetime cash flow through multifamily properties. But the subtitle is The New Rules of Real Estate Investing. Now, when I first started my podcast, I literally gave the book away for free, and I gave away about 20,000 copies just to build an email list to communicate with people. And finally, my team's like, hey, knucklehead, let's put it on Amazon. So it became a bestseller in 3 categories. But the new rules of real estate is focus on cash flow. Value is out the window. Like I've got an example of an asset in Louisiana that the seller paid $20 million for 10 years ago. We bought it for $16.5 million, but that's irrelevant because it's all about the cash flow. And that's what, that's the lesson. Okay. Although I was at a 30% loan to value, a single family portfolio just flat does not cash flow like multifamily. It just doesn't. And I don't know, honestly, I'm not even sure why, but it doesn't. You take a group of single family houses and you'll find that a larger multifamily cash flow is much better. So
it's like the houses are meant to be lived in, not be renters. And multifamily is built for cash flow. That's the whole purpose.
Right. And it's just unusual because I belong to a mastermind of some of the biggest single family players in the country, wholesalers and flippers. And this was a common conversation for the guys there that were buying and holding, that the single family portfolios like mine really didn't cash flow like multifamily does. So it's just kind of interesting. But that's what happened. And that's
it probably has a lot to do with what you're saying, Rod, about all the different parts maintenance wise of a single family home. Like in an apartment complex, everything's there. Everything's the same.
No, that's a big piece. The logistics as well. For me, I was way too spread out. Now, can you make money with single family? Sure. But I would encourage you, well, for God's sakes, if you're going to buy and hold, I would encourage you to try to do multifamily instead. It's just easier to scale, logistically easier and everything else. But if they're close, the houses are close together, you'll be fine. But I'm here to tell you, buying a 10 unit is about as easy as buying a house. And so why the hell wouldn't you go bigger? It's just, you're going to scale faster and you're going to reach your dreams faster and you're going to have less brain damage. I'm going to tell you, because even with a 10 unit, you can have somebody on site that gets half a month off free rent that can help do make ready and show the places and take care of the exterior and the lawn and everything. And so you just have so many economies of scale and have less brain damage with multi. Wouldn't you agree, Blake?
Yeah, I absolutely found that out myself. So like I was telling you before we started here, I started in single families and, over the county had, several different houses all over the place. And that was when I didn't have, the cash flow to outsource that kind of stuff yet. So that was me and my wife running around doing all this stuff. You forget something, don't have the right tool, got to go to Lowe's and then back. I mean, it eats up time. And as you're trying to build and grow and scale your portfolio, your time is very important at that task.
Time is everything. That's the only thing you don't get back is time. And I tell my students this, they're like, you like to self-manage, right, Rod? I said, yeah, when I stop buying, but not when I'm in acquisition mode. I want third-party management. And, I'm not dealing with toilets and tenants while I'm growing because it's not the best use of my time. My time needs to be out there finding deals, putting them together, financing them, raising equity, all that stuff.
Yep.
And so,
that's the highest value task, what drives everything else. Yep.
Right. We talk about this, I'd love to sit on my lawnmower, but it is not a good use of my time. It's just not. And so, anything you can outsource, those of you listening, I have, I'll have people call me and say they're overwhelmed because they're, trying to do this, this, and this. And the first question I ask them, and they have money. And I say, the first question I ask them is, do you have an assistant? Do you have an executive assistant or personal assistant? Because you shouldn't be doing a lot of the things you're probably doing. Right. Yep. So that's another.
Yeah, that was a big jump for me as well, as just getting that first executive assistant. They're in the Philippines. They really don't cost that much to hire. And for what they do and the skills that they have, I mean, it's such a big driver of their economy there is doing the work for US based companies and individuals. So such a valuable resource in outsourcing. The first thing I ever outsourced was having somebody mow my yard at the time.
Yeah,
it was such a big thing. Like my wife was like, no, you're a man. You got to mow our lawn. I was like, but listen, babe, we have all these different lawns. We can get them all mowed for cheaper. So why would I mow ours when I can be out finding deals?
Well played. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my maid is here right now. She comes a couple times a week. I mean, my wife would do it, but I do that just to spoil my wife. But, the bottom line is there are things that you shouldn't do. You really shouldn't, unless you're building the emotional bank account with your spouse. That's it. They like to see
couples cleaning sessions.
Therapy. Yeah. There is that. There is that. But anyway.
That's good. Well, Rod, we talked about where you started out, how you built up that first portfolio. Started out mostly in the single family space,
like most people. Yeah.
Yeah. Like most people do, like I did myself, and then began to get into apartment space before losing it all, but now built back up and the business is bigger and better than ever. I've got so many different $1 million businesses going on. What does your portfolio look like today?
Well, I don't like to talk about counts. I just tell you in the last couple of years, we bought 2,300 doors. But I'm in, what states am I in right now? I'm in Texas, Louisiana, Kentucky, Ohio, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida.
Southeast and Midwest.
Yeah, Southeast. Yeah. Pretty much Southeast. And South, that's the mark. I mean, that's near where I live. And, if you're going to invest, I'm looking at my map over here. That's why I'm looking sideways. If you're going to invest, stay close to home. There's enough low-hanging fruit on your side of the country. If you live in California, don't invest in Boston and vice versa. That's just silly. Okay. Because there's enough low-hanging fruit near where you live. So again, keep that in mind. And the beautiful thing about, as Blake, and those of you listening about this business is that's the other big thing. You can't buy houses in a state away from you. And it's very difficult to find good third-party property management for single family and even some small multi. It's very difficult because it's a dog-eat-dog world in that space. I've owned a management company for decades, and it's a thankless job, and people don't like it because they're actually dealing with the tenants versus, use a third-party property manager for an apartment complex that's over 70 units, and you've got an on-site staff that handles everything. So the management companies don't get burned out like they do in the smaller space. But so the beautiful thing about multifamily is you can buy it anywhere and hire a third-party property management company that's competent to handle it. And so,
and like we're saying, it's much better use of your time to do it that way. And you can go out and buy more and build
and the smaller stuff, you can't ramp the value. Single family and duplex, triplex, fourplex, the value is based on comps, where in commercial real estate, commercial multifamily, the value is based on a multiple of the net income, which you're able to increase and massively ramp. It's about $17 to $1 as far as NOI income. And I've got numerous examples of complexes we bought where we've, raised the value $10 million because of our efforts. And so, I think
that's the stuff that just gets me so excited about this, as that income approach and creating value. I mean, it's like nothing else out there. And I just love it. I wanted to ask, because you've been through, the worst downturn and through multiple different real estate cycles, is there anything that you're seeing today that's similar in our current market to maybe the
buddy, it's like this is like, it feels like it's frothing. This feels like 2006 and 2007, exactly the same. Now, obviously the fundamentals are much different. I mean, back then in 2006 and 2007, if you could fog a mirror, you could buy a house because the lending had become so lax. People that worked at Wendy's were buying $100,000 homes because it was stated income. So that's not the case anymore. But there's no question that in my mind, things are frothing. People are overpaying. And that's another thing. If you're an investor, accredited or otherwise, be very, very careful because there are people overpaying right now for sure. We're being best and final, which is where they ask for the best offers from the highest bidders on a deal to try to ramp the price. And we're like blown away by what some of these properties trade for, which means what they sell for. And I'm like, there's no way they're going to get the returns for their investors that they BS them they were going to get. And so just be careful of that, guys. Like back to that San Antonio example, most operators have to do a syndication at like a 70-30 or 80-20 split. That deal's 50-50 because they have to do the 70-30 or 80-20 to make the deal work, to make it fit. And we don't have to because it's such a conservative deal in its own right. So just be careful and make sure you evaluate an operator before you give them money. But where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought. Anyway, the market is very frothy right now. Oh, that's what we were talking about, the market. So, as you know, this current administration is throwing trillions and trillions of dollars into the economy. And just so you understand, if you ever want to get your mind blown, go on Google and search, what does $1 billion look like compared to a trillion? It's hard for your brain to wrap around how much money that really is. And to think that it's not going to impact our economy negatively is naive. Okay. Because, you can't just print money and not have it impact the economy. Like I've got right here, let's see if I can grab it real quick. Here's a bill. You guys that on iTunes can't see this, but here's a $100 billion bill from, I think it's Zimbabwe. 100 billion. This is about $1 now. Okay. So that's what we're looking at in this economy here is rampant inflation. We're already starting to see it now. That's a huge negative for the general population, but honestly, it's not as much a negative for us. Okay. Because what else goes up with inflation? Rents. Real estate value. Okay. Rents, you better believe it. Well, rents and then value because of the rents. And so, and value as well. But as a real estate investor, there's probably nothing better that you can buy and invest in than real estate to hedge your bets against inflation. But to think inflation's not coming is naive. It's definitely coming. It's already here. I just hope it doesn't get as bad as, some of these other countries that have been devastated by it. But let's not go down that political rabbit hole, because it's something I feel very strongly about, the stupidity of it. But anyway.
And I think I've seen the same things. I mean, the inflation is going to be I think the biggest thing, with, like you're saying, with all that money flowing through the economy, the dollar is going to, be worth less money. You're going to get less for your dollar. And because of that, real estate, people are going to continue to put money into hard assets like real estate and even other commodities. And that's what you're already seeing, like big Wall Street firms, family officers are getting into real estate, pushing the values up higher, making, value add investors like you and I, it's harder to find those deals. So you got to just fill the top of your funnel more, right? Screen more deals, analyze more deals to finally get ones that make sense, because so much money is going to real estate. But that means if you can get in, if you can find a good deal now, even if, Rod, I don't know what you're, I'm curious to see what you think about it. Even if you can find a decent deal now, you can reasonably expect that rents are going to continue to rise. Yes. And because of how commercial real estate is valued, those rents rising are going to increase your value, and you're going to be able to achieve your return. So maybe
let's talk about that for a second. So that's there are two sides to that coin. And part of me is like, these guys that are buying these yield plays for 250,000 a door, really nice assets, totally banking on rent to go up. Are they brilliant? And so part of me is like, I think with inflation, it's a given. And, if there is a big contraction, and who knows what the catalyst will be, and if it'll happen, but I believe it will, because real estate goes through cycles. I've been through 3 of them, and I'll give you an example of one in a second. But if that happens, then that strategy is going to fall apart, because rents will stay flat, and then those returns won't be there for those investors. Rents have never declined, so I can't imagine that would happen. It would have to be a pretty big crash. But they did decline. I shouldn't say that. They did decline in 08 and 09, about 11% nationally. But the beautiful thing about multifamily is when was it? 2000, like 3 years after the contraction, the rents were higher than they were before the crash. So, I mean, multifamily is the most resilient asset class there is. But again, if we have a massive crash, then those people doing the yield plays and that scenario you just described may not be a home run. But I've been thinking it myself, honestly, with this inflation, does it make sense to do a marginal deal and I haven't yet, but, I would definitely not do it in a C asset. It would have to be an A or B asset to be a little more aggressive, I guess is what I'm saying. Not even marginal, but just to be a little more aggressive. to me, it would have to be an A or B asset to risk.
There's
it.
things to think about. Maybe it's a compromise,
Yeah. Agreed. It's an interesting conversation. And, if we knew the answer, we'd be on the back of our yachts right now,
2 or
buddy.
3 podcasts on this topic alone, I'm sure.
Well, let me give you an example of a real estate cycle, though. This is kind of a mind-blowing one. So I had a bunch of property in Denver back in the late 80s. And I bought this house for $56,000. I remember it's on 30th Avenue in Denver, Colorado. I won't give the address publicly here, but I bought it for $56,000, flipped it for $76,000, made a nice profit. Well, the market crashed the next year. I bought that same house back for $18,000. Okay. Several years later, I sold it for $160,000. Now, the really interesting thing is that area is now gentrified and it's worth about $1 million. So again, 18,000 to $1 million. Anyway, but that's what happens with real estate cycles. And California has seen those extreme swings. Florida has, Nevada has, Arizona has. So, just keep that in mind, guys. To think that it's going to continue to be dancing in the streets with the real estate. We're headed, I think we're going to have a contraction. Now, is it something to fear? Good Lord, no. With crisis comes opportunity. If I hadn't been hiding under a rock in 2009, I'd be on the back of my yacht right now. Okay. And so, it took me a while to recover and get back on my feet. So, there's just, but I am getting in cash. I'm totally getting in as much cash as I can. And when it happens, then cash is king when it happens, but again, not something to fear. Now you don't have to have your own cash. You should have access to cash. So you could be pre-framing your investors. Hey, when the market contracts, let's not be fearful. Let's be excited because there'll be incredible opportunity.
Yeah. And that's something I've heard, multiple people say as well that went through the last downturn is, man, I wish I would have had more cash, and that's something you need to start building now. So that's such good advice, building your skills, building your knowledge and expertise in the fields and, your investor base, your capital, so that when it's ready, you can take advantage of it. And Rod, I don't know what you think, but I don't see this being as bad as a 08, 09 because of what the government has done to keep that from happening. And because I
hope you're right. I hope you're right. I will tell you, I've interviewed a pretty big economist and listened to other ones, and they think it's going to be much worse, but really? Who knows? If we knew the answer, we'd be beyond wealthy. But
so I guess all you can do is prepare and
just prepare and don't fear. Don't be fearful. That's it. That's the key here, because in any scenario, there are people getting wealthy. Okay, so if you can keep a clear head and move forward, there'll be exponential opportunities. You listen to my podcast, I'm at 11 plus million downloads, and I've interviewed some of the biggest hitters in the country, and many of them started in 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, that's a clue, right? Yeah. So, by the way, my podcast is called Lifetime Cash Flow. Put a little plug in there. Even if you're not going to do multifamily, I do a little clip every week called Own Your Power. It's a motivational clip. I hope you'll check it out. Again, if you're accredited and you want to chat with us about one of our deals, text partner to 72345. And if you want to come see me in Orlando, I hope you do. Tickets are like $197 right now. That's for 3 days of training, and it's not a sales pitch. Just go to rodinorlando.com or text Rod in Orlando to 72345.
Okay, cool. Here we go. Last section of the show then. Okay. This is the
Fortune 5.
5 questions I ask every investor at the end of the show here. So what's the biggest thing that has contributed to your success?
Determination and focus, without question. Focus is the biggest thing. And anything you can do to enhance your focus is huge. Like I listened to Tim Ferriss's podcast. I brag about my 11 million downloads. He does that a week, I think. And he interviews the best of the best in every genre, actors, politicians, billionaires, you name it. And I started to hear a pattern. They all meditate. And what does meditation enhance? Focus. So focus and determination.
I've started meditating this year as well. Definitely see the benefits of it. Second question here. What's your biggest mistake so far that's turned into a learning lesson? We touched on it a little bit, but curious.
It's not being more focused on cash flow and resiliency of my demographic in my tenants. Yep.
Man, yes. Such good insight. Definitely, guys, if you need to hear more about that, reverse and go back to that section of the show. I mean, really good stuff in there. Rod, what's your favorite book that you would recommend for someone starting out?
Oh, buddy, I'm going to give you a bunch because my warriors get gifts from me every month, and my love language is gifts. In fact, that's a great book, The 5 Love Languages. I had the author on my show because, we all feel love and receive love different ways, but my way is giving gifts. So some of the books I give my warriors are Turning Pro, Deciding to be a Professional, Not an Amateur. Another one is The Slight Edge. Those little decisions we make every day that traject our life up or down. They don't seem like much that day, but when they compound, they change the trajectory of our life. Gary Keller's One Thing, fantastic book. Let's see, The Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod. I had Gary Keller's co-author on my show, and I had Hal Elrod on my show, and not for any other reason that I love these guys and I love these books, but Hal Elrod talks about getting up in the morning and starting your day off right. Well, there's a handful for you. Those are all fantastic.
I like it. Yeah, those are all read. Most of those very good recommendations. Right outside of real estate, what do you like to do for fun?
Fishing, boating, jet skiing, riding my bikes. I got these cool little Vespa scooters that look like a bear on a bicycle, but I love riding those around. But yeah, so just being outside, man. You can see my backyard here. I live in a compound on the water in Florida, and I just feel blessed every day when I get up and look outside.
Yeah, I love you. You don't have to go far to jump on the boat or to fish or any of that stuff. So that's awesome. All right, so last question here, Rod. Where can people find out more about you and connect with you?
Yeah. No, thank you. So like I said, if you can do the boot camp, for God's sakes, I promise you'll be glad you did. So rodinorlando.com or text Rod in Orlando to 72345. If you're an accredited investor and you want to chat with us about deals, text partner to 72345. And if you go to, Real Estate with Rod, that's my website. I've got tons of free resources. There are articles, books, and videos, and it's all free. Of course, my podcast is free. If you put in real estate in iTunes, typically I come up in the top 5. Used to be number 1 next to Bigger Pockets, but their algorithm changed. But, I think you'll enjoy the podcast. That's why it's been so well received. And that's enough. That's enough.
I love it. Well, Rod, thanks again so much for coming on the show. This is awesome content, great lessons learned.
Thank you.
Thank building, you, losing, and growing again. So really appreciate it.
Thank you, Blake. And thank you for your service, brother. We are blessed to have you guys. All right. Thanks, man. Take care.
All right. And we're out of here.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you like the show, if you found value in it, please go to iTunes and leave a rating and review. If you want to check out more on your multifamily journey, go to multifamilyjourney.com where you can get free resources to start your journey and figure out your path. That's multifamilyjourney.com. But more importantly, go take action today towards your financial future. See you next time.